Welcome to LabOPEX Live. As usual, come on in, and this time I'm going to ask you to put LabOPEX Live in the chat. If you're joining us live, just put LabOPEX Live. And if you're joining us on the replay, LabOPEX Replay. And I just wanted to start by doing a quick introduction and why we're making this focus on LabOPEX Live. Our guest is waiting, and I just want to let you know that for me, I've been talking to a lot of experts on this show and through networking within the medical lab community and just talking to other medical lab professionals. And I made a decision about a year or so ago to pivot. A lot of people talking about pivot during the pandemic, but I made a change of focus. And my focus used to be a lot on lab leadership because I thought if we can change the culture of leadership, then we change a lot. And now I've changed my focus, and now my focus is on all medical lab professionals. And my focus now is to help medical lab professionals who feel hidden, who feel undervalued, and unsure of their next level career growth opportunities to identify their unique skill sets and to operate at their highest levels to make a difference in their careers, their lives, and in healthcare. And that's why I'm doing this LabOPEX Live season is Focus on Careers, where I'm bringing on for you medical lab professionals as role models who are doing great things in the field in a variety of different roles. So if you're coming on and you're live, just put LabOPEX Live, and we have an amazing guest for you today. I'm making this focus on career. And another thing I wanted to announce because of that, I am launching another cohort of my coaching program where they're aspirational medical lab professionals just like you who design in 8 weeks or less a customized blueprint for their next level career so that you can operate at your highest level and make the impact and the compensation that you deserve. So we have a few seats left, and I'm going to put a link in the chat now and maybe later on. But the big focus today is focus on careers. So we have an awesome role model today, and that's no other than Tywauna Wilson. And we're going to pull Tywauna on stage now. She's waiting backstage, and you're in for a treat. Hi, Tywauna.
Hi, Lona. Hi, everybody in the audience.
And we have Jesse saying LabOPEX Live, and excited for this session. We have Dwellin saying hello from Phoenix, Arizona. And if you're coming on now, just say LabOPEX Live if you're live, because we have we're looking forward to an amazing evening with Tywauna Wilson tonight. And we have a lot to talk about. And so we are going to jump right in and start with Tywauna. The first thing we're going to start is like rapid fire. Tell us about like why you became a medical lab science. What's your current role? Let's not even start with, I know I'm going rapid fire with a lot of questions just to start, but just tell us about your current role. What does that role entail, and what prepared you for that role?
Awesome. Well, first, before I get into my current role, I just want to say thank you, Lona, for having me on your show, leveraging your platform. I think this is awesome, an awesome way to expose laboratorians and friends of the laboratory to different careers in the lab and to let other people know how they can be advocates for the lab. So my current primary role, I serve as the System Technical Director of Chemistry and Toxicology for CompUnet Clinical Laboratories in Dayton, Ohio. I have oversight for chemistry and toxicology for 5 hospital locations, 2 freestanding, soon to be 3 freestanding emergency departments, and a core laboratory. So we are busy, busy. We are in Southwest Ohio, and our reach spans to the Cincinnati area. Dayton is our primary market, and as far north as Troy, Ohio, where one of our other hospitals is located. In my role, all things new instrument selection, validation, system standardization. So we use the same procedures for our equipment across all of our locations. So if we have one primary vendor for chemistry, but we have a variety of their platforms to meet the needs of our locations, from our small freestanding emergency departments to our large core laboratory. So instrument selection, contracts in regards to those instruments, procedures, validation, CAP for all of our locations. So we are accredited by CAP as well as COLA for our freestanding emergency departments, or COLA. All of our other labs is CAP. So we are inspected as a system with 2 regions, a north and a south region. So our CAP window opens this year. So that will be 2 inspections that we will go through. So making sure that all of our locations is in compliance when it comes to our competency, our training, like I said, validation records, dealing with physicians and nurses at all of our locations. So any of those questions, we implemented a toxicology department. So talking about pain management. So that's what my current role is. So it is very technical. So my teams, which I have awesome, awesome leaders across the system, when anything technical, it always comes up through me. We recently, within the past year, we implemented front end automation at 2 of our locations. We also had new computer system, 2 different computer systems within the past couple of years. So we have SunQuest, and we also have Epic Beaker. And so we implemented that. And at our core laboratory, believe it or not, within the past 2 years, every single piece of equipment in chemistry is new. New electrophoresis, new chemistry, cobas equipment, new toxicology LC. So yeah, I've done a lot of stuff in my career, and especially within this past 3 to 4 years.
Wow. I mean, it's good to, I mean, most time when you listen to Tywauna, you're getting a lot of leadership tips. You're getting a lot of tips on soft skills and how to be great leader. But it's good to know that she's doing a lot of hardcore work in the technical space. She has a lot of responsibility with several labs that she's overseeing. So that's awesome. Kudos. So Tywauna, tell us what really prepared you, because, like, this is focused on career, and we try to get real great role models to come on the show. And a lot of people are aspiring to move into their next level role, and they'd want to know, how do I get those responsibilities? So, what prepared you for this role, Tywauna?
So that's a very good question. And I would say it goes back to knowing where I wanted to end up. So like you train and coach and mentor your students, your mentees, your clients on finding their next level role, I think is very important for people to define their career roadmap so that as you make decisions in your career, they make sense. So when I came into this industry, listen, I thought I was going to be the president. I thought I was going to be the CEO of the hospital because I saw it. I saw at the time one of our hospital CEOs was a medical laboratory scientist by background. She was a microbiologist. And so after seeing her, I knew I could do anything, right? And so I thought, okay, what do I want to do with my career? And so I thought I always wanted to go into administration. I knew I wanted to be a laboratory director very early on. And so what I did is started picking opportunities that was going to position me to be able to move into a laboratory director role once it became available. And so I started out my career as a generalist in hematology and chemistry. I
Mhm.
worked on third shift. So at that time, that was our heavy, high volume laboratory. It was in a reference laboratory. And so I got great experience there. And then I said, okay, well, I don't have the hospital experience. And
Mhm.
so I moved into a hospital role where I got to hone in on my blood banking skills. So I had blood bank, I had hematology, I had chemistry, I got some processing, and I even got some phlebotomy, which is not one of my favorite things. So kudos to all the phlebotomists out there. I absolutely love you because that was not a strength of mine, but I did it and got that experience. And so I was able to strategically move into different roles. So I got that experience. Well, then I said, well, I probably need some community experience. Why does community experience matter? Well, I'm going to be interacting with people of diverse levels within the organization, whether it's with nursing, whether it's with our senior leaders, whether it's with the community at large. I need to know how to interact and how to engage. And so I was fortunate enough, my career took me outside of the laboratory for a couple of years, and I had the opportunity to start up a mobile diagnostics program. So it was a community focused program within our hospital, and our main service line was screening mammography. So in that role, I got the opportunity to one, sell that service, sell the importance of that preventative health, taking the service to where people work and live. So finding people that even wanted our van at their jobs, at churches, at grocery stores. And so I also learned about grants. So I was able to get those skills and being able to uh, fill out for grants. I was able to participate in community fairs. And so I learned a lot about radiology. Again, that's not my background. And I never even had a mammogram when I took on that particular role. And I learned a lot about the trucking industry because we operated a 40-foot van that had air brakes that required a CDL to drive it. So, and police permits to even park it on certain property, as well as making sure the van was even level to make sure the instrumentation would produce an accurate screen. So I did that for a couple of years. So that gave me a lot of experience of interacting. And then I came into this opportunity, which at the time we were just becoming a system. And so I had people that were used to being their own standalone hospitals. They had their own different instrumentation, their own procedures, their own way of doing things. And so because I had been in different roles before this one, it was like, okay, well, we are reorganizing. Okay, great. I've already done that before. Okay, we need to be able to communicate and collaborate across multiple locations. Okay, let me pull that van experience out,
Mhm.
right? Let me be able to do, I can pull that out and see how that's going to work for this. Oh, we need to be able to do the same thing at each location. Oh, okay, well, I can do that too, but because of the first chemistry manager role that I had. And so it just built on upon each other. And then the work that I did in the community, I was able to serve on not for profit boards. And so one of those opportunities was serving for the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio, the single most important experience of my life, because at the time I didn't have any documented in the job leadership experience. And so I served as the president of the Urban League Guild, which is their fundraising arm. And listen, it's hard work asking for money. It's
Mhm.
hard work fundraising, but that helped me to be able to influence in my role as technical director. So now I'm able to influence decisions because of that opportunity. I also was in the room with executive leaders. So sitting on the board of directors, I was in the room with 2 hospital CEOs. I was in the room with CEOs from industry being, your Kroger, your big large chain grocery stores, your large chain retail stores. And so understanding how people of power and influence think allowed me to be able to maneuver some of the complexities of the laboratory.
Wow, awesome. A lot of gems. I hope that you're picking them up. And I know a lot of people are aspiring for different roles, but they don't realize that sometimes even if something is a lateral and it's different, there's a lot of transferable skills that you can pick up in different roles that may not be specifically what you want. Because say for instance, I know that even in my lab, it was a scenario with one of my coaching clients who was aspiring for a certain role, and there's a lot of other opportunities that were there in the lab that did not look exactly like the role that he was looking for. But there's so much that you can pick up in terms of leadership, if you're able to implement stuff, if you're able to lead a group of people and be able to transfer those skills into other roles, because you move out of the lab and you got all those transferable skills in order to come back in the lab to get a leadership role. That's awesome.
It was definitely a blessing. But it goes back to that whole developing your career roadmap, because the decisions I was making was strategic. So I just talked to a group of medical lab professionals, medical laboratory sciences, that are getting ready to graduate here in another few weeks and go out and be scientists in our labs. And one of the things, right now, it's all about money. It's like I got student loans. It's like who paying the most, right? And so one of the things that I told them, because I know this first role that they take out of school is not going to be their last role, right? That it's just not going to be in these times. And so I told them that one of the things to think about is, depending on where you want to go, think about where you want to go. So if you know that you want to move into management, there's going to be some skills that you're going to need. You're going to need finance skills. You're going to need budgeting skills, because when they say send people home, manage to the budget for labor, supply expenses, you need to know what they're talking about. And so I told them to map out where they want to go so that they can think about those experiences. Because if not, what happens is you move for $1, $2, whatever the case may be. And then you're not even gaining anything in those moves. And believe it or not, because I have done a little bit of work on the search side and finding qualified candidates, it tells a story about you. So it's not that it's not expected for you to move from job to job, but if you're moving from job to job and you haven't gained anything additional, then it tells a story about you. And as an employer, to hire you, then I'm thinking like, why should I invest in you? Because here you are moving from job to job and not moving forward because you gained additional skills.
No strategy. Yes, I love that. And that's kind of what the blueprint that my program is really, the big focus is design that blueprint. And that blueprint has to first have a clear vision of where you're trying to go. Totally. So let's see what the audience are saying. I know I kind of feature a few without saying hi. Stephanie is here. And if you don't know, Tywauna, myself, and Stephanie, we are co-hosts on the same podcast, Elaborate Topics Podcast. So Stephanie is here supporting Tywauna. Meb is here. Glad to be here. If you're coming in live, just put in LabOPEX Live so I can know that you joined live, and people who are watching the replay, LabOPEX replay. Camille is from New York. Gail, nice having you, Gail, from Florida. And then Dana said she's dropping in to say hello. Hi, Dana. Gail is saying, thank you, Miss Tywauna Wilson, for your wealth of experience and knowledge of the medical profession. Love hearing your story.
Oh, thank you.
And Rebecca is saying, being strategic is key. It is also very important to learn how to express your transferable skill. Yes, express it. Maybe in an interview or maybe in a Angela. Hi, Angela. Great to see you. He's saying, great to see you all. Looking forward to the show tonight. Here live, Lab OPEX live if you're joining live. And so, Tywauna, now for your creative side. So, the topic of the story, blending medical lab scientists, creative, and entrepreneurship. So, let's see if this, Taiwan is a great example of blending. You see how hardcore she is technically. She's running a huge lab operation, and she's the technical leader. And she's involved in a lot of other creative and entrepreneurship ventures. So tell us about these other ventures that you're involved in, and how are they really supporting the medical lab?
That's a great question. So I have always been a creative. I'm a technical person by background. I am a C-wire personality. So if you know anything about DISC, you know that C-wire people are very conscientious. They are very compliant, and they like their data and like information. But growing up, I actually love to read. I'm an avid reader. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I really feel like reading is my superpower because people don't do it as much anymore. And so I was one of those. I love reading and I love writing. And when I went to college and I got my degree in medical laboratory science, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually have a degree in drafting and design as well. And so I love technology. I love computers. And so being able to blend that. So this whole media age that we're in with podcasting and books and all of that is something, it's been a passion of mine. That's something that I love. So as I thought about moving up in my career and my chapter, so, I've kind of let go of being the CEO, because at this point I get my joy from really impacting the next generation of leaders. So I've been fortunate to have a lot of great opportunities on my path. I've been able to train scientists all around the world, actually stepping foot on training scientists in Africa. And so I've been able to do a lot of things, and I know that I've been afforded a lot of opportunities because somebody paved the way. Actually, a lot of people paved the way for me to be here. And so for me at this point, it's about being that coach. If you watch basketball, I am more like a Phil Jackson, and I like to let the other people be your Michael Jordans or LeBrons. And so how do I do that? I do that through my creative endeavors. I do that through podcasting. So I started my first show, Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, as a live radio show. I started that in 2019. And so I was like, I'm going to bring different leaders. I want to bring exposure to people, because I know for some, their first mentor will be somebody that they saw on the podcast or listened to on the podcast. And that's a great way for exposure for one, the field, but two, to really impact many lives. And so that was something I said, I have a voice, I have a story, and I want to be able to utilize that tool. Plus, I love technology. So I'm like, how do I get this radio thing going? Like I said, it was a live show before you had this particular platform and video, and before a lot of people were doing podcasting. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. And listen, I told you I'm a high C, but I am really an introvert. And so for me, that's stepping outside the box. And I know in order to impact others, I have to step outside the box so that I can impact others. So I love the podcasting space. I think it gives visibility. And I know as lab people, we talk a lot about visibility. Here's the thing. You got to not only increase visibility within the lab community, you got to increase the visibility with people that are not familiar with the lab. That's how you start doing it. You start doing it through efforts such as podcasting. Any podcast that I'm on or any guest that I have, I say I'm a medical laboratory scientist. Do you know what that is? This is what we do, right? So I use my platform for that. I've also wrote books, published books. And so I am all about creating a legacy that makes me proud at the end of the day. And anybody that I work with, I want to help them create a legacy that makes them proud, whether it's in their career, whether it's in their personal life. So in 2018, I wrote my first book, Dear Fear, and in my chapter, or what I was talking about in that book was, Dear Fear, you can't have my legacy. My legacy is mine and it's mine to create. And so when I write books, it allows me, one, to let people know I'm a medical laboratory scientist, just in case you didn't know. But it also allows me to be able to honor those that I love. So in that book, I honored my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. My dad and my grandmother are no longer here. So I was able to share wisdom that they shared with me. I've since went on and wrote other books. And in my last book that I wrote, I actually got to pay homage and tribute to my best friend who unexpectedly passed away in February of 2020 at the age of 39. And so that, for me, that was, that was a shock. It was a shock and it changed my life. And so for me to be able to honor her through my work again, and in anything I do, I'm still talking about lab and visibility, but I'm also being able to honor. So in books and podcasting. And so it's opened me up to a lot of opportunities outside of the lab, because even though people may not comment, they may not share anything, they may not like or subscribe, somehow or another, people are still watching, listening, and still getting connected, and to hear some of the stories, because I had that courage to get out here and do media, to hear some of the stories, that because I saw your podcast, because I saw you, Lona and Stephanie, I'm staying in the lab. Because I saw you all, I'm in the military and I was going to do something totally different. But now I know that I can do many things in a lab. Or when you see a young girl say, because of you, I know that I can make it because I see somebody that looks like me. Early on in my career, I thought I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. And needless to say, that dream didn't last long, because I had never seen anybody that looked like me in that role. And so I'm like, I want to be one. It sounded nice. And then I'm like, okay, now what does that mean? And thankfully, last fall, I actually fulfilled a dream of meeting an African American forensic pathologist by the name of Dr. Nicole Jackson. And we met over media. So it's because of her that I'm like, okay, it is possible. I wish I would have met her like 20 years ago. But yeah, I think you can combine the creative part, especially if that's something that fuels you, with whatever it is your background, is your primary. So the technical, I can do that in my sleep. I love it. I enjoy it. But how do I remix it so that I still love it and enjoy it like I do today? And I do that through books, through media, through podcasting, through writing in journals and all of that stuff, and writing in magazines.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I don't know, I think you're a really great example of someone who embraced their full self, because, I think that a lot of people think that because I'm in this career, I should kind of box myself there. But if you have other things and you can blend it, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily turn your back on something that you love. And that's why, for me, I really love what I do in the lab, and I love to coach and I love to empower. And so I want to be a practitioner while I'm helping others at the same time. And for years, I've loved to do business. So that entrepreneurial piece is there, even though I'm a trained scientist. And I'm not sure if I wasn't maybe at a young age, maybe we were told that science is the best way to go. Maybe for some people it's natural. For me, it was more like, okay, you want to do well, do science. And for me, science is easy and it's something that I enjoy. But then there's this other piece of me that I'm always, especially if you look back and say, what was it that when you were young, you always loved to do? I always love to encourage. I always like to build other people up, and that comes out now. And so when I coach people, I try to help them to discover the things that they're passionate about. And they can blend that. It doesn't mean that it has to be one thing. So there's a lot of things that you can blend and still feel good about what you're doing. And you're doing such an awesome job. Tywauna, I met Tywauna because of her podcast. And so I was on LinkedIn doing maybe lives or doing videos. And then this was the only other person in the lab that I saw going out there and doing things. And every time I'd listen to this Leadership Tidbits podcast, and I'm like, I'm going to reach out to this lady because I was thinking of starting a podcast. And then when I spoke to her, she said, this is a radio show. I'm like, whoa, really? And I'm like, that's amazing. I'm like, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. We started, and before you know it, Tywauna came up with a new idea. Why don't we each reach out to a group of medical lab professionals and say, let's start a podcast? And I think most people were busy, and I said yes, and it kind of died down. And then Stephanie reached out to Tywauna and said, I'm interested in being on your podcast. And she said, I was thinking of starting a podcast. And she reached back out to me and it's like, we have one more person. And so, that's history. But that's how I got to know Tywauna. So like Tywauna is saying, sometimes you're doing things and you think that you're not noticed, and you're a role model to people. So just keep doing it. And you're making that impact that you're making a difference. And so for me, that was my experience. So I know there's a lot that we can talk about, but let's find out from Tywauna in terms of you being creative, and we're kind of talking about that. What do you think? Do you believe that your training as a medical lab scientist help you to succeed in some of these creative ventures that you're involved in?
Absolutely. The training that we have is superb. And I can remember being a student, and I had an early mentor, and she said, with a degree in this field, you can do anything. And I took that literally, like I could do whatever. And so with our training, we are highly detailed, highly organized. We have systems and processes, which is great. Our critical thinking is on point with what we need to do. And so it's very helpful, especially in, say, the entrepreneurial space. You need systems. You need systems in your business. You need processes in place. You need to know how to get income in, and you need to know how to make money. And so, yes, this field has definitely helped. The networks that I've been able to create have been critical in my creative and entrepreneurial efforts, because I've been able to start with the people I already know. I already know people in healthcare circles, laboratory circles. And so networking is huge. And I know we talk about it a lot, about networking and using your network, but really those skills, having that networking skill, having the skills that we utilize each and every day to make healthcare decisions, to be able to know if something isn't right, to be able to look and see like, yes, something isn't right. This is either it's a pre-analytical issue, there's something going on with my instrument. So being able to know when something isn't right. So absolutely having the background and that just that critical thinking has been very helpful. So even when I work with clients and mentor and coach students, I always get to that why, asking the right questions. So John Maxwell always says that good leaders ask great questions, and that absolutely is the truth. Because if the quality of your question is good, you're going to get a good answer for that. If the quality of your question is not good, then you're not going to get a great response to that. And so being able to ask those questions in business, how can I get funding? What's the best way to keep up with my books? So I learned QuickBooks and accounting program. Listen, I'm trying to learn it all. The only limitation that is set is the one you set for yourself. So, nobody in the lab can tell me I can't do something, right? I believe that whatever I want to do, I'm going to find a way. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to chart my career for me. I'm not going to wait for anybody else to navigate my path. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I don't. I have a network of people that do have the answers, which is, when I look at my top 5 people that I spend a lot of my time with, those are people that pour into me personally and professionally. So, you could definitely do anything. And those that are thinking about entrepreneurship and you may think, maybe is this for me? I would recommend that you get a role that allows you to be an entrepreneur within your organization, right? So you kind of get that feel of entrepreneurship without the everything else that comes with it, because when you out on your own, it's really serious. It's serious when you don't have a steady income or paycheck coming in. But there are opportunities within your organizations where you can serve as an entrepreneur. So when I was doing the mobile diagnostics, it actually allowed me to feel like I was running a business. I started it from the ground up. I had to learn how to sell it. I had to learn how to track our volumes. I had to learn the business. I had to learn the ins and the outs of it. And so I worked remote. And so it gave me an opportunity to see, is this something that I would like to do more of? So, there are opportunities. People don't really think about that as serving as an entrepreneur within their company. They think, well, it's all or nothing, right? Like I either got to go full out and try to be an entrepreneur. No, you don't have to do that because it's not for everybody. And technical people sometimes struggle because it's not always black and white. There's a lot of gray in entrepreneurship. So see where you can utilize that within your organization and be a creative. Maybe you love to draw and map things out. So maybe project management is a right fit for you. Right. So think about those opportunities and not just your standard, I'm in the laboratory, I'm on the bench. There's tons of stuff you can do. If you like to teach and train, go work for one of the instrument vendors. Go that way you can teach people how to use the instruments. If you're good with your hands, you could work for the instrument vendor and be one of our people that come and fix our equipment. There's plenty of things that you can do. You just have to figure out in what way that you would like to utilize your skills. And it's okay that over time it might change. So don't feel like, well, today I want to be a lead tech, but now I kind of feel bad. It's 3 years later and I don't really want to do that anymore. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. You have the foundation and a great background. You could do whatever, but you, everybody that's listening and watching, you are your only limitation.
That is so awesome, Tywauna, and that's so true. And it's so important too to what you're saying. Just figure out what is it that you like to do, and that's what we kind of help people with, identifying that core role, so that you can set up that blueprint. You have a map, like Tywauna says, it's a map, but it's basically a blueprint, because you're going to understand your skill sets. You're going to understand what's good, what you already have, the capabilities that you already have. And it's so important to have that clear vision about where you're trying to go, so that when you look at those resumes, you don't see you're all over the place. You can see that this person seems to have a strategy. They know where they're trying to go. They're building on something because they have a plan. And I'm gonna jump in, and I know quite a few people are saying, Angela is saying she is a high D, but I love high C's. I love our data people, so I think you both would get along. Courtney is saying, I always gain so much from your stories. Angela is saying, so true. Networking is so key for support. If you're good at networking, you develop your subject matter expert for each area. Yes, you get all this, it's good to be able to get the support that you need. Meb is saying it's interesting and insightful. Thank you so much for the great lessons, LabOPEX Live. So so Tywauna basically saying to you that if you're a creative, it's okay. You can blend your medical lab science, and that will help you to get to where you want to go. And she's saying that, so basically what you're saying, so for people who are trying to consider or explore any of these non-traditional careers, would that be something that you would encourage? I mean, you're doing it, right?
Absolutely.
What would you say to them?
Go for it. Do it. No, I would absolutely encourage that. One, life is too short to be in a role, to be in a position that you are not happy or satisfied with. Right. And so go ahead and do it. The one thing that I will say is that, especially for our lab professionals, if you're thinking about, I want to try something different. I have a mentor, and I talk about him quite a bit. His name is Cedric Lafour. He is a former medical laboratory scientist, retired at 50. But one of the things that he said, and I take it with me, is that he says, you have the technical, right? You have the technical expertise. So you don't have to it's great to get more knowledge, but open yourself up to different knowledge, different skill sets, right? And so you have that technical. So I know my technical background is strong, but there's other areas that I want to strengthen. And so I would encourage each and every one of you, if you're thinking about, I want to kind of do something a little bit different, go for it. Invest in yourself. I have a speaking coach. I think it's good for me to figure out different ways to communicate, because our workplaces are so different. We have 4 generations working today. And so even though a lot of the techniques are, being on the stage or presenting to you tonight, those tips of connecting, I'm able to utilize it with my team. I have also taken courses around copywriting, and I read books on influence. Why? I want to know why people buy. Why do they do the things they do? How do I relate that back to the lab? Well, I have to pitch this new endeavor, and I need to be able to do it so that it's well received, right? So I have a book right here. I am actually in a mentorship group. If you know anything about copywriting, you have heard Jim Edwards before. And so I am in a mentorship group with him. And it's interesting. You think, like, what copywriting have to do with lab? Because it's the psychology behind why people do things. You can't communicate the way that you might have communicated with, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And post pandemic, you definitely can't communicate the same. And so when you need to get initiatives passed, you need to figure out the best way to be able to get people on board with those decisions and get them on board quickly. So I take classes like copywriting and understanding funnels, and why people buy. Because again, in the lab, I'm selling, whether it's selling to my team, whether it's selling to administration. And so it's helpful. And then going to conferences in which I'm going to meet new people. I go to conferences for educators. It's like, I want to know, like, what are you doing? What are you teaching our students? Like, what's the new techniques? I go to all kind of media conferences. And so I would say for lab people to get out, and if there's something that's of interest to you, get exposure to that, because one, you're taking your background as a lab, but now you're starting to introduce some other people into your ecosystem that think a different way, that act a different way, that's able to ask questions a different way. And all of that helps you in your primary space, in your career, and in your personal life. Don't keep doing the same thing around the same people, expecting a different result. They say that's insanity. That's what they say. But I would just say, if you are creative, get out and try stuff, and don't be afraid to invest in yourself to get in the room to be able to get some of these opportunities.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Get out of your comfort zone, learn new things, see new things, talk to new people, get new ideas, read different books. Awesome. So, Tywauna, if the listener, you said a lot, and I'm sure that the listeners would want to either follow you, learn more from you. Where could they connect with you?
So my happy playground, of course, is on LinkedIn. So that's where I refer everybody. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't already. But you can also go to my website, TyaunaWilson.com. And then you'll find out information about my Standout Leader Academy, where I have a elite group mentoring program. Again, I'm about development and developing people, not just in the lab, but as well as outside the lab. So we're talking about stuff like attitude, personal branding, leveling up your LinkedIn, how to network, how to negotiate. Because listen, getting a new job is not just about the salary. There's other things that you can negotiate. So we talk about those kind of things, as well as the monthly roundtable. You'll be able to find books, the books I've done, podcasting. So I would say LinkedIn is the best place of where I hang out. And I think it's important all of you are on LinkedIn, and those that are watching the replay might be other places. Or you can go to Tywauna, TYWAUNA, Wilson, WILSON.com. I hope you connect with me. Send me a note. I would like to talk with you.
So I'm putting TyaunaWilson.com is the website. And okay. And okay, so thank you so much, Tywauna. And thank you so much, amazing audience. As usual, you have been great. And if you are thinking of moving into that next level career role and you're unsure, you don't know what that career role should be, you haven't figured it out, join me in our next coaching group, which is starting in 2 weeks, where I can help you figure out your core role and design your blueprint for your next level career. And let me see if I can put that in the chat also, where you can just connect with me and we'll have a conversation and we'll see if that's for you. So have a great one, and come back next Thursday for LabOPEX Live, where we'll have another amazing guest, where you can great role models who are doing great things in the medical lab field, where we're focusing on careers. Have a great one.
Have a good evening.